public schools and our kids.
At the library
So I'm not
that
gonna
night,
make you
right.
listen
Some
to
of
it
the
again.
folks, some of the faces look familiar to me.
Yes.
Go ahead, yep.
Did you have any questions about Stanford Children that we might
Nope.
be able to answer, so you're
Nope.
on board with all that? Then I just wanna thank you for
I
your
do
time
applaud
today.
your efforts, by the way. I mean, it's
Thank
great
you.
to see that, you know, for so many individuals that take such an interest in such an important thing, obviously, is education. There's no better gift that we can give to our children than a good education,
No better
obviously.
gift that we can give to ourselves too, given the cost that we pay later if we don't,
Yeah, well,
if we don't.
exactly. How long has the foundation been networking, I should say?
In Massachusetts, about 4 years, nationally,
Okay.
about 8 years.
Okay.
So, and Lowell, actually, just since November. So Lowell's got
Sure.
more than 80 members now, 3 different and strong and growing teams, and who care very deeply about the community and about our kids.
Well,
So-
when I saw that turnout at the Lowell Public Library that evening, I could tell, I was very impressed by the turnout that night, and I could certainly get
But I'm not gonna take up any
that.
more
Nope,
time.
go right ahead.
Okay, I'll just share a quick.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to give you the abridged version of my life growing up
Sure.
in Lowell. But I'm a proud product of Lowell Public Schools. I came from a low socioeconomic status family, bilingual family, and of course dealt with the social ills of poverty and lack of education. And for me, there were a lot of factors around growing up in Lowell. Of course, the negative influences, but I also lucked out and had some positive influences. Literacy programs like Head Start, Title I reading, that gave me those skills. I needed to be successful in school. I also found a mentor in middle school, played soccer throughout high school. But I never thought that education was for me, college education was for me. In high school, I actually resigned to the fact that enlisting in the military was my only option, and my potential for considering other options wasn't a result of poor grades or lack of a well-rounded resume. It was due to my poor self-esteem and my family life. Fortunately, I had some teachers that took interest in me in high school and provided me the support to apply to college.
Lowell High, McGalley,
Lowell
correct?
High,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
And I applied to several colleges, and I ended up at Boston University, and I graduated from there. And I was the first in my family to complete college. Throughout teaching, there were a lot of cuts in Lowell, and I think to educate a child in Lowell costs more because our students fall into many subcategories of being English language learners, their SPED issues, and low income. And for some of our kids, it's a double or triple whammy because they fit into all 3 categories. Also, too, special education costs have risen. The expenditure in Lowell has increased from 18% in 1992 to 22%, and the circuit breakers also only provided us 2% relief. The budget is going to increase next year for special education funding. Our state expects our students to meet or exceed the curriculum frameworks, yet we don't meet or exceed the funding. So I think it's reasonable to have that expectation as well.
Can you say what you're speaking from, what perspective you got? Because I think it's interesting, your role in the district.
Oh, because I'm an educator there as well. I'm sorry if I forgot to mention that.
I kind of assumed that for
Thank
a
you.
minute.
But I'm also a math support specialist, and I'm working with the elementary schools children. And for me, my particular concern is elementary math intervention and remediation, because our budget is so tight and we squeeze so much out of reading intervention that there's no math intervention or lack thereof. And those misconceptions just compound themselves and manifest later in the schooling, and it just costs us more in the long run. So for me, that's important to provide that funding for some math intervention as well as the reading support. So that's the gist of it.
So now I'm going to go over our legislative agenda quickly. The first is special education transportation relief. We would like lawmakers to provide full reimbursement of special education transportation costs of the circuit breaker and lower the threshold of the circuit breaker reimbursement to no higher than 300% of the foundation. The foundation budget covers barely 50% of the special education costs, and circuit breaker assistance helps every district. Transportation costs for special education students has been growing at double the rate of the regular school transportation costs and receives no state aid. So the cost of transportation reimbursement is estimated at $50 million this year. Our second item is support the local option taxes act and to develop additional means for raising adequate state funding for education. Without new revenue options, cities and towns will continue to face harsh zero-sum choices between education and other critical municipal.
Are we gonna get that money earmarked? In other words, is the city of Lowell, for example, if they're able to do this, if we give the local council the authority to take that vote to put in the tax, are there any guarantees that that's gonna go to education? You know what I'm saying? So that's
Right.
something to keep in mind for yourselves. I'm sure that every town manager has ideas of what they would like to do with some of that funding. So just keep that in the back of your mind, you know what I mean?
Thank you.
So that's what we would, that would be a different
I would at the same
agenda.
time,
We need to
right,
take it
a
up
different
with the-
agenda, as well as lobbying us. Keep in mind, go back to the individual cities and towns, to the selectmen, the city councilors, the town managers, and say, hey, first of all, let that go, because, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This might be all well and good if this were to happen on the state level, and then all of a sudden, if the money's doesn't, you know, if the money's unappropriated and designated, just keep
Right.
that one in mind.
Yeah.
Well, and actually Stan does work on two different levels. We lobby at a state level as well as at a local level,
Okay.
so that's very helpful
Yeah,
feedback.
so.
78. We asked lawmakers to recognize that the $220 million in Chapter 78 provides woefully